Welcome to another episode of the CarryTrainer Higher Line podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Higher Line podcast. We've got an old friend, new friend, a friend you've seen before, Mr. Todd Fox. I'm going to let him tell you what company he's with because he's got like 14 of them.
My main company is called the Close Protection Corps, and it's been around 22 years.
22?
22, 1999.
So longer than some of you guys have even been alive. 99 you started it?
True story.
If you haven't seen the first podcast we did with Todd, you can go back and check that one out here on the Higher Line. But your core business is tour protection.
Protection, yeah.
So people go to a concert, you're the guy behind the scenes keeping the act safe.
Yeah, we do multi-layered. So we do site, we do personal protection for the artist, and then we do advanced site survey and all kinds of information gathering, collection, and all kinds of fun stuff.
So Todd came up to us this morning, and we're going to be filming the podcast, and then we're going to film a series of videos for you, which is going to tell you more about what he does. And about 2 months ago or so, I shared a video with you guys stating if you're going to get some training this year, he was one of my top 5 guys that I would go spend some money with. So we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about what he's been up to since the last time we visited with him and some more. Since we last saw you, you won a national jiu-jitsu title, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Which was?
The IBJJF American Nationals, middleweight M4.
So tell people what that means. I mean, that's a lot of stuff.
There's a governing body that controls Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and basically that body controls all the rules and all the tournaments and all the prestigious things, and you're not prestigious unless it's IBJJF for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with a gi and without a gi.
This was gi, or you did both?
This was gi.
Okay.
No. I in this particular case, I stuck in gi. My background obviously is MMA and no gi and gi, but in this case, I was training with gi on. So, so it's a tournament, big tournament, the Nationals, and they do everything from local tournaments in the cities to regional tournaments to something like the Nationals to Pan Americans to the Worlds. And so I was lucky enough to win that.
Was it luck?
Probably some luck.
Yeah.
I mean, right place, right time, right solution to the problems that were presented to me in those particular situations, at least in those 3 fights.
That's super cool. I think, people see these competitions or tournaments and don't understand all that goes into it. Now, you started training jiu-jitsu in 1996. Okay, so you've been at it a long time. You've got how many stripes on your black belt?
I have 5 stripes on my black belt.
Do you really?
Yeah,
that many?
1 at the top, 1 at the bottom, and 3 in the middle. But yeah, I'm a 3 stripe, and I still have another year before my 4th one. So
that's pretty cool. And that's a long time. Now, something you and I were chatting about earlier, not all jiu-jitsu's the same.
Absolutely not. Unequivocally, no.
I know you through Henry Akins. You and Henry trained together at Hickson's in California 100 years ago.
Close. Close. Mid-90s, yeah.
Back when Abraham Lincoln was still splitting logs here.
He was, and he was a white belt.
Abe was. Talk about that, though, the difference in...
Yeah, I think as time goes on, jiu-jitsu becomes more watered down and it becomes more sport-oriented. It has to be palatable for the masses. So what happens is if you want to give it to, little kids like karate or taekwondo or anything like that, they create more of a model that's suitable for a business. And it works. It works for the business. Unfortunately, it takes away from some other realms, like the realms that I would be more interested in. Right?
Actually surviving in violence or winning.
I only think of jiu-jitsu in terms of fighting. I don't think of it in terms of points, which is detrimental to me in tournaments because I'm not looking at the points. I don't care about the points. My objective is to submit. And that's, 90% of my competitions, I win with a submission. And then 10% I lose on points. And it's always been that way because I see it that way.
So what he's saying is he never really loses.
No, not at all. I lose. Like there are times where I'll win by points. that's not a win for me.
Sure.
Right? So I have to have it on both sides of that, meaning that if I lose by 2 points, I don't really lose, but if I win by 2 points, I don't really win. My goal is submission. And jiu-jitsu has kind of gone away from that a little bit and gone to the 37 steps to an outcome and instead of 3 steps to that same outcome. Right?
It seems like every person I know that trains, maybe it's like this. Everybody thinks their baby's cute. And you see some babies and you're like, that's a nice kid, it's a good person, but that kid's ugly. But everybody thinks that they're jiu-jitsu, like they say to you, like, oh, we're the only people that know pressure, or we're the only people that really train for all of the possibilities.
They do. That's a fact, because no one's going to say, my jiu-jitsu sucks. But the problem with that is that when they're saying that, they have to be able to present why. And it has to be under stress, meaning that, okay, you say your jiu-jitsu is the best. How does that work in MMA? How does that work in gi jiu-jitsu? How does that work in street combatives? And if you can't test that, then you don't know that what you're saying is true. But if you can go into all of those realms and test it, and you're continually successful, or more often successful than not, that's your test. That's your litmus test.
Well, my jiu-jitsu is too dangerous for testing.
Yours is.
My mystic art from wherever in Asia, it's too dangerous to actually show you.
You know, ironically, not too far from here is a school that teaches dim mak.
Are they for real? Is it here? It's somewhere in this region?
It's in
Can
this
we go
region.
there?
We can, but check this out. So in case you don't know this, guys, dim mak works unless you're an athlete. It doesn't work the same on athletes.
Tell them what dim mak is.
Dim mak is the death touch. Boom, you touch somebody and they die. And they don't die right away. Might take a day or 2 or 3 or 40 years, but you died because of the dim mak.
Yeah, the touch of death. That's so funny. I think was there one of the Jean-Claude movies where
they were doing
some
silly stuff like that.
Stupid things. People want to believe that stuff. You know, some of the stuff we're going to talk about this filming session, not so much here in the podcast, is going to cover this, but people want to believe in like easy answers. I had a lady the other day say to me, just a side note, hey, can you teach me to protect myself? And it's like, well, there's like a million can of worms, you know, that we just took the top off of. Are you deep sea diving in the Pacific Ocean? Are you climbing Mount Everest? I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole, but people want this, like, yeah, I just got to touch the guy and not go down the path.
Yeah, I mean, Americans really want an easy solution to every problem, first of all.
The hack.
Yes, a hack. And the problem is that in fighting, there's no easy solution. Like, you have to do the road work. You have to do the training, and it's going to take years to get good.
By road work, you're talking about Rocky out running in the morning in his dirty.
That's one component, right? Physical fitness,
yeah.
Right? Not just training a technique in the air where there's no resistance, but then fighting against guys at a low level, fighting against guys at a mid level, fighting against guys at a high level, fighting against small guys, medium-sized guys, big guys, fighting against guys that are good on the ground, fighting against guys that are good strikers. To build that takes years. There's no shortcut to it. And, we keep looking for that pill. Give me the pill, give me the shot, give me the thing that's only, one exposure. And it doesn't work that way because there's too many looks. There's too many different things that could occur. And so to try and reduce it down to one thing or one scenario, what are you going to do? You're going to tell the attacker who picks the time, the place, and the method of attack, no, stop. You need to come back at a different time. You need to attack in a different way. You need to do it at a different place because, well, the wall's here now, and so now I can't fight against the wall because I'm not trained for the wall. That's a different specialty.
Which brings up one of the points. So we knew Todd was coming. We put a post up, and I asked people, I didn't say it was Todd, but I said if there was a expert in his field that you could ask a question to, what would it be? And one of the questions was phrased something to the effect of how or at what point does it become paranoia training? Like, I think for you and I, it's more of we not only want the benefits of all of this, but we enjoy it. You enjoy the people, you enjoy the exercise, But when does it become paranoia? Like I need to also learn how to cook porcupine poop if I have to survive. And
I need to learn that because I don't know how to.
disgusting. I would not go after that recipe at all. It was a lie.
Really?
That YouTube channel sucked.
Porcupine poop.
I just made that up, but you know what I mean. You know, we keep going.
I do.
People build bunkers and fill them full of food, planning for eventualities.
Yeah. Well, you make a good point, which is, do they just enjoy the planning and the preparation and the idea, the concept of it, and so they're filling their free time with that? And as you know, like for us. Maybe we like the physical fitness component. We like the camaraderie component. We like the self-defense / confidence component of fighting. And it's a use of our time that we can see benefiting us down the road, maybe out with a family and an incident occurs, or out with a friend and an incident occurs, or we're overseas working, or we're overseas on vacation, and you have those skills to solve that problem, right? And one of the things that I talk about a lot is problem analysis solution. And in jiu-jitsu and MMA and Muay Thai, boxing, whatever, in combat sports, you're constantly going through that cycle over and over again. And it helps you solve problems in other realms because your mind is conditioned to that. Hardship, problem analysis, solution. So for us, part of it is the process, part of it is the thing we're doing, part of it is the growth that we're getting from it, I think. So I don't feel paranoid. I feel prepared. I really literally feel prepared by doing that thing. So I don't have any concern about what's going on around me because I feel like I have the skills to meet that particular challenge.
One of the things we're going to talk about this weekend is finding anomalies, which just where the thread I'm going down is, what's the problem, right? Is the problem a polar bear? Is the problem a gang of violent thugs? Is the problem a house fire? Is the problem blah, 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 blah? So all of those things have a solution. And that solution could be tied to weeks, months, or years of training. How do people best begin developing and parsing all of the bad that's in the world? And I'll add one more thing, because like right now, you look at the headlines, and so it's like, geez, I need to have a gas mask in my car for my family. I need to have riot gear, because it's just what you see. So then that's what you think the real threats are.
Yeah, so I think it starts with, number one, it starts in your brain, right? So your brain is your primary weapon. Everything comes from your brain. So you have to be able to think through stuff in advance and then also in the moment under stress. And so the first part is, as you mentioned, what happens in this environment? I have access to historical data, right? So I know I can look at the internet, I can talk to police officers, I can look at uniform crime reports, there's all kinds of data available. So if I know I'm going into a given realm, I start to pull that historical data and look at what's occurred. What type of things occur? What type of crimes occur? When do they typically occur? What time of day? What day of the week? What time of year? And it's very different. And you can see that across the country, there are patterns that we can recognize and then adjust for. And then I can start to say, well, how do I solve this problem, right? So I know that in this particular part of town, at this time of day, this day of the week, these crimes occur with great frequency. So the first solution is,
don't be there.
I don't go there. I don't go there. I don't want a problem, so I don't go to the place where there are frequently problems. So that's the simple solution. Sometimes things happen that are outside the norm. Some anomalies occur where this place normally doesn't have problem at this time of day or this day of the week or in this part of town, and I happen to be there and I see it start to unfold because I'm paying attention to what's going on around me, and I've identified like that doesn't fit into this environment, and so I look at it a little closer and I see it's going in this general direction. Why sit here on the X and wait for it to unfold and get pulled into it? And the common thing is this: oh man, look. And now I want to videotape this anomaly that's occurring because I think it's cool or it's different or somebody's about to get shot or beat up, instead of solving the problem. The solution is leave, GTFO, just get out. And so I leave, and then I'm not there to get sucked into the problem. And the very last thing is the thing that we like to train for, fighting and shooting and all of that, but that's a bad idea. That is opening up Pandora's box for me, which isn't good. But if I have the skills, hopefully I can survive with the skills that I've trained if they are reality-based. So that would be my approach to it.
My joke earlier about luck, when you said it, of course, you were being serious, because somebody doesn't know. You hear tough guys say, I would have done X, Y, Z, not knowing if the impish potential bad guy had a knife in his pocket, willing to stab you in the neck over and over, or a pistol, or a hand grenade, or if that same guy that you would have pushed to the ground and left came and burned the establishment to the ground later that evening. You just, like you said, you have no idea what will come out of that box when you crack the lid.
And that's why training takes so long, because you have all these potential outcomes and all these potential scenarios that will lead to specific outcomes. And you're trying to control as many variables in an equation as you can. And pretty much coming down to two things, which is either I want to manipulate the variables, either adding variables or removing variables to get a very specific outcome, or anything but that outcome. And we refer to it as type 1 and type 2, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm. It's daunting when you think about, okay, so I'm listening to this expert tell me in order to be safe, I got to train a long time, but I need to be safe right now, though. I can't wait to be safe.
But when we talked about three options, one is don't go where there are problems. Mm-hmm. Two is leave when problems start to occur or you think they're starting to occur. And the third one, which is only 33%, is actually engaging the fight when you get stuck. Mm-hmm. And even before the fight, you do have other options, right? Like barricading, knowing how to utilize doors and systems and structures to put those layers between you and the threat and give yourself some time. So there are other options, but at least 66%, which is not going where the problems are, and two, leaving when the problem starts to unfold, that's in your favor if you don't want to be in the fight. So you don't have to spend all of that time training to fight, to be prepared for that. I would advocate that you do in case you get caught in that situation, but most of the time you can avoid it. You can make decisions. You are in charge of where you go and what you do and how you do it, and then how much attention you're paying to an environment. So if I know through research and through talking to people, I'm coming to your neighborhood, you know what's normal in your neighborhood. So you're a subject matter expert on your neighborhood. So I call you, I'm coming to your neighborhood, I'm coming at this time, whether you're here or not here, you know what goes on here. So you can give me a data dump on, hey, this is what's normal in our neighborhood, you should look out for this or look out for that. Hey, this neighbor has a kid with a drug problem and this guy brings some undesirables around, so be careful if you see this or that or whatever it may be. And this neighborhood over here, this guy's a cop, if you have a problem, he's really good about it, I'll let him know you're coming to my neighborhood. So you can give me that information coupled with what I can find in other sources. Mm-hmm. And now I'm semi-prepared to come into that realm.
It's not fun to sit and read all that stuff. People, I'm posing a alternate viewpoint here because it's like, I could be playing on Facebook. I could be playing video games. I could be watching Oprah. I mean, this is I'm literally having to just go read data reports
Yeah, so in 15 minutes time, I can have enough data to make really sound decisions. But if I'm not willing to spend 15 minutes, then I'm not going to get the benefit of being able to make sound decisions. And so there is no magic pill. If I'm not willing to do the work, I'm not going to be good at anything. Name something where I don't have to do anything at all and I become really great at it. It doesn't work that way.
Is there an award for being lazy?
I'm sure there is. And if it exists in this country for sure.
Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing, something that people don't like hearing, is if you actually give a shit, you'll do something.
Yes.
And if we don't do something, what you're really telling me or telling you is you don't really give a shit. It's kind of like, a lot of things, but it's all of the things that we do to look a certain way. It's almost like you see these guys put silicone in their biceps, you don't actually have any horsepower there, but it gives you this look. You ever see these weirdos that do that stuff?
Yeah, it's huge in Brazil. I think
is
the
it?
main guy, yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, I understand
it's like silicone.
Yeah, fake boobs. I understand it. It's it makes you more attractive, etc. But this is meant to move things.
But it's the aesthetic. It's what they want.
Yeah, it's kind of goofy. You seen that, Drew Upper?
Yeah, I was just thinking, why can't they eat soy like everyone else? Puff up your chest.
Yeah. No, there's these dudes do that stuff, and it's you don't really care about being fit or being strong. You want to just look a certain way.
And consequently, you will suffer the negative outcome when something does occur because you didn't put the work in. And I recall maybe many years ago going through a law enforcement academy, a state academy, and on the wall was, if it's important to you, you'll find a way. If it's not, you'll make an excuse. And ultimately,
I like that.
That's how it is, right? If it's important to you, if survival is important to you, if your safety is important to you, if your family's safety is important to you, if the safety of your business is important to you, you'll find a way to come up with the solution to the potential problems. And when the problem occurs, you'll have that solution in your back pocket.
And that goes both ways, because there are thousands of burglaries every year, so somebody can get dope. You see a guy with a DUI riding his bike down the road in the dark in the rain with 2 cases of beer, hanging off of the handlebars. He will find a way. So that, I think that human motive is there, even if it's a negative thing. Some people get raped because it's important to the raper to get what he wants. So yeah, I think you guys should start to analyze, man, am I living as I'm thinking, or am I just having fun fantasies?
Yeah, and some of that is, some guys just want to have the general understanding of something. They don't want to do the hard work, the practice. They don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to sweat. They don't want to be exposed as someone that can't do it, right? Every time you put your ass on the line, it's an exposure for you. You can be shown. I can go to a competition, whether it's MMA or gi jiu-jitsu. If I go out there, I'm potentially exposing myself as somebody who I say I am, but I'm not. And a lot of people don't like that. It's a potential opening to find that you're not who you think you are, and you're not who you present to other people. And that's the greatest hurdle that I see with guys, is they're not willing to do that.
They don't want to bear their ego, not just to others sometimes, but to ourselves, because then you got to go sit.
Well, that's the biggest problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you not wanting to know. You kind of know, you have an understanding, but if you go do that thing and you fail, you've confirmed what you think in the back of your head. And other people are seeing you fail.
And the cool thing is you can remedy that, but you get into that loop of doubt and despair, and then you don't break out of it. I can personally, I got away from jiu-jitsu for years, not because of that reason, but family, couldn't afford it, financially, it cost money to go pay a gym, and I just couldn't afford it with young kids and stuff. Was there a way? Sure. I probably could have not smoked cigarettes like I did at the time and spent that money. Could have not spent money, doing whatever, and created the couple $100 a month. But then so much time elapses, then you get used to not doing the thing. And then I started to build up other bullshit. Well, I've got these other layers, I'm really good with a pistol, and I'm fast, and I can, pay attention and just not cause that problem. And then a friend grabs you and chokes the shit out of you, and you're like, all right, damn it, I gotta go back to the gym.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying in a nutshell is everything has a cost-benefit analysis, right? And a cost not meaning financial cost, but some cost, energy cost, psychological
energy, yeah.
Yeah, and you do that analysis, that cost-benefit analysis, and you find, okay, it's good or it's not good. I want to do it or I don't want to do it. But it all comes down to that, doesn't it?
We're really good, and you keep saying, especially here in America, and I think sometimes that it pisses off, especially the strong Second Amendment gun guys. They hear that, that ain't me. I don't know, man. Maybe it is you, because I haven't seen you training. I haven't seen you. I got a neighbor that lives down the road he's probably 60. He used to put a rucksack on with 100 pounds in it and walk all over on he'd pick the hottest days, and he didn't have to. He's retired, but he refused to give in to father time and would go sweat it out and grind it out. Are you doing that, or are you?
Yeah, I think it's easy to just, we're the best, we're this. I'm as pro-American as you get, having been a Marine, having been a SWAT guy in a law enforcement agency, having protected Americans all over the world. America, 100%. But I also have to be honest and say that because we've had it so good, because we've had such a great country, and this test up to now is held, we've become a bit lazy because it's been too good. We don't struggle to find food, struggle to find water, struggle to find a shelter. It's all there and available. And so when we analyze, we have to be honest, right? Because you can't find the problem without being honest in your analysis, at least from my perspective.
Mm-hmm. I've not traveled nearly as much as you, but you as in we travel to other places where all of these things are not so available, and you see what people are doing to get by, and it's staggering. I mean, the worst of us here, and clearly there are people that are destitute and living in abject poverty in the United States, and there are places rurally especially where there's not as much access as there is in the urban areas to resources, but the people here that are suffering are usually doing so much better than they are in some of these second and third world countries.
You can't make a comparison.
Yeah. Even things like access to internet and, things like that.
Yeah, look, if I don't think anybody should have to live in poverty. In this country, there's very little poverty relative to places, other continents, right? Mm-hmm. South America, Africa, Southeast Asia. But like you say, in an urban environment, there are restaurants that will throw out good food in a dumpster and you can locate that food. Mm-hmm. There are clean water sources. You don't have to walk 30 miles one way to get access to clean. You can go behind any gas station and put your head under a spigot and not die
and
it's not good. I'm not advocating for that lifestyle. I'm just saying it's available.
Right.
You can find shelter. There are plenty of buildings that are open 24/7 that you can go into that are non-operational after 5 or 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and you can have shelter from storms, tornadoes, whatever it may be. So it's a very different thing.
There's not lions trying to eat you.
And hopefully there are no lions trying to eat you. But the point of this whole thing, I think, is that it creates a certain mindset, right? When you're struggling to survive for something, you cut out all the periphery stuff that's unimportant to survival and you focus on that and you're dedicated to that and you're motivated to do that thing. You'll do the hard work it takes to get the piece of meat you need to live for the next 30 days or 90 days.
I like meat.
You do.
Kind of, in a sense, what I'm thinking about is like going and standing toe to toe with a man, even that's your friend, but it's a training partner that's trying to be non-compliant and stop you from doing whatever it is you're doing. In a sense, is creating a lot of that pressure that the world used to put on us. We're subjecting ourselves to it. In a sense. Would you agree?
There's small exposures, right? There are these limited exposures with some type of control mechanism so that you don't have severe injury, right? Oh, I got a bruise, maybe I broke a bone, I'm a little bit sore or worn out or something's disconnected that shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. But yes, it definitely is more akin to the reality of nature, right? And I think that's something you feel viscerally when you train. You feel that in your system and you have endorphins that are released. Do you not feel that way 100%. When you have a good training session?
Yeah.
I do. I mean, still, 100%. Even at my advanced age, I still feel that. I'm not 20 years old anymore. And going with those guys, it will make you feel younger. It'll make you feel better and stronger and more capable. And it also, as I mentioned, when I do jiu-jitsu or I do Muay Thai or do wrestling, I'm thinking about problem analysis solution. It helps to free that space in my mind. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it solves a lot of problems for me. Guys that train hard and train regularly, they don't have some of the problems other people have.
You go to other places, just watch Discovery Channel or National Geographic, and you look at people you're my age in our 40s, and the dudes are almost always, you can see their abs, you see all the muscles, regardless of what they're doing. They could be a mechanic, they could be a farm worker, they could, even the folks working in the urban areas. You don't see dudes like this, and part of it's the type of food, the access to food, but they're always doing.
Yes.
You're doing. You wake up, you do, you go to bed. You wake up, you do, you go to bed. Now we're like, I got a 10-minute workout you can do, just 10 minutes a day.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, it is nuts.
What are you going to get done in 10 minutes?
Nothing.
Nothing of value.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
And you look at that, to your point, you look at cultures across the world where you see that regardless of what their occupation is, regardless of whether they're working out or not, they're eating these whole foods that are healthy and they're natural and they're not filled with all kinds of stuff to keep them on a shelf for 12 months or 18 months. And it's just part of their life. It's part of their life, how they live, what they eat, what they drink, where they go, community-based. And when you look at longevity, I think the two places that keep coming up in all the studies are Sardinia off the coast of Italy and Okinawa off the coast of Japan. And all those same reasons that you articulated, right? And why they're able to live into their mid to late 90s on average.
Eating good food out in the sunshine, working, sitting around with their family, laughing and having some good vino or sake or whatever they're drinking over there.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. It's like we want to buy things in a bottle that we can eat that allow us to do all the other stupid shit that we want to do.
You could work out, you could eat right, you could drink a lot of water, you could be outside in the sun, or you take the shot. Give me the shot, it's quick. I don't want to have to work out, eat right, be in the sun. It's a choice.
Yeah.
Or it should be a choice.
Should be. Talking about mindset, you brought it up a minute ago. Like the older I get, the more I think about. I was with some people this weekend. One of them's stage 4 cancer, but he looks like he's beating it back. And super cool dude. I've known him since I was a child. He's out pushing 70. But you could kind of hear in the conversation with the family a lot of the like, well, once you're my age and life goes by quick and if I could change things. And it was kind of a depressing discussion. And so I was having a beer and they're like, you shouldn't, drink that beer. And it's like, I'm looking at all these guys that I know every one of them when they were my age, and it's not a dig, does not do the things I do and it don't eat like I do. But then I thought, even if I'm drinking this beer, I'm smiling, I'm happy. I'm sitting here like while they're talking, I literally like tuned it out and the sun was on my face through the trees and I was just kind of smiling, sitting there like, even if you died at 70, I want to live and be happy and not have my heart full of constant fear of disease or calamity. Or you got to be conscious of it.
Yeah, you get to pick and choose what you take in, and then all the periphery stuff that's just noise you push out, and that's what you did, and that's a great solution.
So how does a guy like you who spends their whole life analyzing potential risk not fixate on all of those bad things?
Through the things we talked about. So if I am taking downtime to train, to prep, to get ready, to have the skills so that if things do go wrong, I have solutions to those problems, I'm more at ease. And I'm more calm when I'm scanning and assessing. When I'm establishing through advanced work what the baseline of normalcy is, and I'm looking for an anomaly, and I see an anomaly, I don't go through the roof with my heart rate because I expect to see an anomaly, I expect to see multiple anomalies, and I expect to know what the potential solution is and have that skill set ready to go.
I like that.
And so it helps me to be calm, helps me to be relaxed. I know when I'm going to fight, the guy's gonna punch me in the face, the guy's gonna kick me, the guy's gonna elbow me. I know these things are coming. So when he does it, it's not shocking for me. I know that if that guy's carrying a gun and I see his hand start to move to his waistline, that he can pull the gun out. So I'm not shocked, oh my God, he pulled the gun out. This is a conversation we have frequently with a lot of students, is that it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, nothing comes. Yeah.
How did it come out of nowhere? Like it dropped through the ceiling or out of the floor? Like it didn't come out of nowhere. It's just that you didn't see it because
What'd you call it, a bunk puppet?
We're not going to touch that one. No pun intended. But things don't come out of nowhere. And so for me, training those skills, taking the time to do, the research on what occurs in a given environment. And then when I see it, to not have this normalcy bias, like, no, that's wrong, that's not what. No, I know what it is. And I'm ready for it. I expect it. And I have the solution and I present the solution. So
I like it.
It makes me feel confident. It makes me feel comfortable. It makes me relaxed. And when you're relaxed too, you typically are able to pick up stuff quicker than you do when you're tense and you're in this state of panic.
Exposure equals composure. That's what we like to tell students. Listening to you, and I don't worship at the altar of Cooper, but your Marine Corps brother, Jeff Cooper, I remember in one of his books, he said, that thing I thought about it. I planned for it. I knew it was going to happen. There's that. And then it's the same thing you're just saying. Like I've trained so many times for that thing that's not only is it not disturbing to me, but like, oh yeah, there it is, just as I imagined.
Yeah. So on two fronts. One is that I think we lose context for Cooper's value in his time. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have access to all these systems and processes, and at a time where people were heavily dependent upon revolvers, and this guy is shooting a 45, and this guy's coming up with things like the Mozambique drill, and this guy's coming up with a color code in relationship to your mental awareness states as opposed to governmental stuff. This guy was so far ahead of his time in how he was thinking of things and looking at things. And then now, as you know, we have, I won't call them gunfighting schools, but firearms academies and training facilities everywhere across the nation. This guy started that, 50 years ago. And so while I don't worship at the altar, I have immense respect for the guy and what he did and the books he wrote and his own experiences in places like Mozambique, to come and take that lesson from that place. Because how many people do you know that have been to Mozambique? I'm the only person I know that's been to Mozambique.
Yeah, a few, that's it.
And bring it back and start, American Pistol Institute or Gun Sight, and to create these ideas and share these ideas. And now, what do we do? This is what this says. Oh, now here's a video of that. And now here's it. None of that stuff existed. And it's very hard, especially for young guys or girls, to understand what this guy brought to the table. So that's one thing. Two is that
I appreciate you making sure folks understood that. And then most of the folks listening here know that I have great admiration for what Cooper did, but I also, just to add to that, there are people that, like, if it's not what he said, it's not valuable.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, even I think, and I haven't been in Gun Sight in many, many years, maybe 15 years, but I think even those guys that are dogmatic about some of the stuff have started to evolve and accept some of the newer practices. And with, the last 20 plus years of war fighting, guys have brought back stuff that's different. It works in different environments, in different ways. We have different weapon systems, we have different ammo, we have different quality of everything. Gear is different, placement's different. And so I think they're slowly evolving. Again, I haven't been there, but I believe that's the case based on talking to people. We have access to so much now, it's hard to say that the tactics should be the same as they were in 1960, 1970. But the truth is, when you look at the core writings and concepts, none of that has changed from what Cooper wrote. Processes and systems and all of that in terms of weapons handling, that may have changed, that may have evolved, but the concepts are the same. So that's great. One other thing to your point, in terms of exposure to something that you prepare for, that you plan for, I don't think that it's abnormal to be nervous or to have some level of fear. That's natural, I think, and I think it's managing that. And we can talk. I was talking to a guy at my gym maybe last week because he was hyper nervous about competing. And he's like, do you get nervous? I'm like, yeah, I still get nervous.
How old is he?
24 years old.
Okay.
And he's going to compete in gi and no-gi jiu-jitsu. And he's like, the last time I was just so nervous and it was an energy suck. I said, man, I've been doing this for 25 years. I still get nervous. The difference is how you manage it. And part of that is self-talk, right? Because, you have this one saying, oh my God, this guy's so good, he's won the world 10 times and you're gonna get crushed. And this guy's saying like, wait a second, you've been training this for X amount of years. You do this to high-level guys. You beat the guy that beat him. And trying to be reasonable about that and push out all of the self-doubt that wants to seep in. And that's normal. 90+% of the population is gonna have that. And I think that it's managing it. Part of managing it, as we're talking about, is through exposure. I have a limited exposure here, a limited exposure there, and collectively now I have the benefit of experiencing those hardships and now modifying it, pushing out any negative self-talk and starting to reason through why I'm gonna win. And I think that just takes time.
That's the same mindset, the same, what word am I searching for here? You just in the process of talking to oneself, you build self-awareness, but you start to gain confidence when, okay, I can control that voice. I can tell him or her to shut off or say this or say that. And I think too, and I'm not saying this to you so much as the listeners, viewers. Too often we just take that voice as fact. Well, it's there, and then we don't even think beyond it. That's scary. That's scary. That's scary. That's scary. That's scary.
And it has a purpose, right? I mean, it has a purpose for self-preservation, right? I'm scared of that tiger, that lion, that whatever, and don't go over there. And that makes sense. I get it. But when we start talking about other areas that it spills into, like a martial arts competition, or even if it was a gunfight and you've trained and you have the skills and you have the actual tool on you, you know, if you literally just stick to the task at hand and say, I've done this X amount of times, and you rationalize and override that voice, you're probably going to have success, because the number one enemy for most people is themselves. It certainly is in my case. You know, trying to manage yourself, manage your self-talk, manage your thoughts. And part of that, as we talked about, is just that exposure. I've done it repeatedly. If I'm scared of something, I'm going to go attack it. I'm going to do it over and over and over until I get good at it, and then I'll move on.
Do you have any authors on that topic that you like?
Man, I can't pin one down in this moment, but I've tried to read on that topic frequently, and when I see something, and I'm sure you do the same thing, it'll be a line or a paragraph, and it's in the notes on my phone immediately. So I take that stuff in, but I can't think off the top of my head of one particular author.
I don't know if you could.
What about you?
W. Clement Stone. He was a salesman. Wrote what was the name of his big book? He was a salesman that basically took his sales philosophy and created a early self-help 100 years ago. And he spawned all kinds of guys. But I think that's a good book. W. Clement Stone's a good one. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Some people don't agree with everything he said, but I mean, he 100 years ago really put a lot into understanding that voice in your head. It really does direct you.
And now that you say that, Deep Survival, Lawrence Gonzalez.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That falls into that category for me. Why you think that way, what happens when you think that way.
Yeah, I think too often we just let that tape reel go in our head and don't realize. And if I catch myself all the time, these days more so from a productivity standpoint, not productive like producing more work, but just productivity in life. Like I want to produce happiness or joy. So like if I just find myself on some reel, like, okay, make coffee, empty dishwasher, like those things you have to do, feed the dog. But if I'm just like in that mode, or God, I'm tired, or I don't want to go to the gym, or whatever, just that's, you can force whatever thoughts you want, or not force, but choose you can set up that reel to play whatever you want. I think some folks hear that and they think it's hocus pocus, but you said something a moment ago, which this mirrors it. Like I can choose to go about my day and have to empty the dishwasher and make coffee and let the dog out and have good thoughts, or I can do all those same things and have bad thoughts. Like that seems like a pretty easy choice.
It's pretty liberating to know that you have control of that, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because your mind, and this is most people that I know, your mind looks for the easiest out, right? And you know, I'm let's say something goes wrong and I'm late for practice. You mentioned going to the gym, like, oh, I don't feel like going to the gym today. You don't feel like going to the gym to start. Something bad happens, so now you've got this compounding thing, and now you're late getting to the gym. So you're like, I'm going to be late. So why go at all?
Yeah, I'll just
so
go
now
home.
You're looking for that mental route.
It's
that
good night
easy
to watch
path.
some Netflix.
Yeah, like, okay, I had this bad thing happen, which is now making me late for the gym.
You know what he's talking about.
It happens, and I'm, you know, when I train guys, I tell them, like, I've thought this way, I've done this, I've done that. This is what I do to combat that.
I'll start my diet tomorrow.
Yeah,
I just talked to a guy the other day. I said, man, I thought you quit smoking. And he said, what did he say? He said, I had planned on it this month, and then such and such happened at work. So stress at work caused you to do something.
Yeah,
it's just an excuse.
Your brain is looking for that excuse.
Yeah.
And as I get older, I'm more aware of those small subtleties. When I have that shift in thinking, a negative shift, like, nope, I'm going to the gym. And yes, I'll be late, but instead of getting an hour, I'll get 30 minutes. And I know this one guy is there, and the guy that's there always stays after for 30 minutes. So I'm gonna grab him and we're gonna go train. So I'm gonna get that full hour. So now I'm combating that. Well, you're gonna be 30 minutes late, you're gonna get half a workout, you're not gonna be warmed up, you could get hurt. Nope, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna get the 30 plus, I'm gonna find the other guy in the gym that's motivated and he's gonna stay an extra half hour. So I'm gonna get the full hour. And now I've just combated that, oh, well, you're gonna be late and you might as well not. Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of like that old business adage of pay yourself first, which people misunderstand all the time, but the same thing. Like I am important enough, which I am, to myself, that I have to go do this. If not, it ends up worse later, because for a minute you get that like feeling of like release, like, okay, I'm just gonna sit here and watch Netflix and order a pizza or whatever the you're gonna do. But then it's like, man, I'm a bum. Why didn't I go? I can't believe I did that. I always do that. Now it's like, oh, now here I am in this circle jerk in my head again.
Yes.
When you could have just put the screw in and stopped it.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of times the harder road initially leads to the more fruitful outcome. And knowing what you're predisposed to, giving yourself in terms of excuses, as soon as that reel starts, like you mentioned for me, I'm shutting it down. Being able to identify it early, just like a physical threat. You can identify early where this is going. Like, what's your brain trying to tell? Nope, not doing it.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. The earlier, the better. Just like the stuff we're going to talk about. I'm stop that guy at the fence line rather than at my front door or hovering over my bed.
That's the biggest difference for me with age is identifying it earlier. And so I have a much higher percentage of likelihood of shutting it down. Nope, done. I see where this is going and I'm not going there.
Self-love. I care about myself enough that I'm not going to play. And it's such a waste of energy too, because once you, even when you do it, you know somewhere deep inside, I know where this is going. I'm going to give in to myself and do this bullshit thing, and then I'm going to fix it and I'll do better tomorrow. Well, how about just don't waste any of that time?
And in the end, that's an interesting point, because in the end, it's actually a shortcut. It seems like the harder, longer method to go through that thing that you don't want to do, but the reality is it's shorter to do that than go through this loop and go through all these obstacles or hurdles or obstructions to get to a certain point. It's shorter to actually just cut to the chase. Get rid of this, go, get it done.
I don't know if that's human nature, if it's always been, or something that we're getting better at, but we sure do like to bullshit ourselves a lot. It's so easy now, too. Like, somebody was talking to me the other day about food, and what they were saying was they were trying to make better choices. And I'm like, how do you try to make better choices? Like, you know, whatever this is, I shouldn't be drinking. I'm trying not to drink it. I'm trying not to, you know, what, like, that's just delicious coffee. But
in this day and age, it's too easy. Like, everything's laid out for you. If you want to eat well, I mean, think about what you have access to in a grocery store. I was reading, I can't remember the name of the book now. Actually, Henry gave it to me. But a book on you know, the food choices that we have today in this day and age is something like 30 times greater the number of choices than kings and queens had 200 years ago.
The variety.
Like you have access to so much, and you have access to that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And
it is
so
crazy.
how do you try and not make good choice? Like, you try but you can't. Well, no, you're not trying, right? It's just a word. I'm trying.
Right.
No, you're not.
Yeah. Try harder. Well, how do I do that?
By doing it.
Yeah, do it. Yeah. Just make that choice. And that's that. I think, you know, folks listen to these discussions. You and I have just admitted through conversation that we're personally, Drew too, I know, have been on these constant journeys of self-improvement. We all want to be happy.
Absolutely.
Nobody like says, I want to be miserable and have a bad relationship with my spouse. Everybody wants to be happy, but then we lie to ourselves to like continue whatever our status quo is rather than cut through the bullshit. And it's that easy. Stop lying to yourself. Just do the harder thing.
It is.
And it's usually not even harder though.
It's not, but it's just to identify it and then shut it down immediately. And I think, for me personally, as I get older, it's become much easier. You know, you see where all of it leads, and it always leads in that general direction. So, you know, why take a chance? Like, oh, I'm just gonna, nope, shut it down, go. And I do think in the end it is easier, and it's a shortcut almost to just shut that down and realize you always have, even in the worst scenarios, you always have a choice. You always have a choice. Always.
You hear folks say, and not to keep hounding on the food thing, but I just think it's a good comparison. I'm going to splurge and allow myself to eat this thing. We all do. I mean, I like ice cream. I like, you know, whatever. But like, it's even that in itself is you're shoring up this idea in your subconscious that this bad food or the cigarette or bad thought is a bonus or a treat or you're rewarding yourself. Eventually, like when I quit smoking, I smoked for years. I use self-talk. I don't think I've ever talked about this, not that it's secret, but I love cigarettes. I started smoking when I was maybe 12, 13. You know, it was like a cool thing. My buddies and I'd go sit and smoke cigarettes, like hide and sit in the alley or go fishing and suck down cigs, and eventually it becomes a habit. So my maybe late 20s, I quit. And I was a good smoker. I could smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I mean, I could be on the job site and I'd hold a cigarette in my teeth while I was nailing a rafter up, and I'd be screaming at somebody, you know, throw me a with a cigarette in my teeth, and I'd flick that. I was good at it, and I could smoke a whole other pack.
That's top tier construction right there.
Yeah, I was good at it. This was new construction, but I wasn't throwing cigarettes in people's houses. Anyway, at the same time, I had a lot of anxiety in my life, and of course, nicotine freaking amps you up. So I knew that, and I was like, all right, well, I got to stop this. I could start to feel physical changes. Like one day I climbed up a ladder holding some shingles, and I got to the top of the ladder, and I was like, it was the first time in my life that I felt fatigue from something that never fatigued me. And it was cold. I had a bunch of clothes on, and I'm like freaking sweating and panting, and I flopped the shingles on the roof, and I'm holding a cigarette in my mouth, and it like, bing, like, hey, dumbass, like you've been doing this for 15 years or whatever. So I didn't quit immediately, but like I started to tell myself every day, I would tell myself maybe 500 times, 1,000 times, just mumbling. I'd say cigarettes ruin my skin, ruin my teeth, ruin my heart, ruin my lungs, and will kill you. And then I'd tell myself, I'm a non-smoker, I'm not attracted to cigarettes. And you know, people, what do they always say when they go to quit, like cigs? Oh, you know, how will I be able to go out and drink again? So I would literally tell myself, I will still be able, or I wouldn't, nothing was in the future. I'd say I can still enjoy a beer without a cigarette. And maybe a month went by, and it wasn't magic. I had to like force myself, no, you're not going to smoke. But I believed, man, these things are killing me, and so I stopped doing it. But I forgot where I was going with this initial thread as I started. But my point in bringing it up, though, is it is that easy, just like choosing and then doing.
Yeah, we make simple things complex. We were talking about that today with jiu-jitsu,
yeah,
right? Like
7.
You're doing 7 steps to get to this outcome. You could have done it in 2. So now you have more potential points of failure, more issues, more problems, and it takes longer, so you're not efficient. Because you're not efficient, you're probably going to be less effective. Like, it's the same thing.
Why do we want to do that? I think sometimes it's like just to bullshit and talk. Hear yourself. What do you think?
It seems like that. I mean, in terms of jiu-jitsu, I don't know about people in life and why we need to complicate things. Maybe part of people in life is that life's too easy now relative to how it was naturally in nature. But with jiu-jitsu, for sure, people want to add a spin or a pizzazz or a flair or a change or their little movement or angle on it. And it almost never is better. Almost never.
Looking back to when you started jiu-jitsu, we started to talk about this, kind of coming full circle to how we started. Can you like look at a technique or a series of techniques that you remember how you learned it working with Hickson, and like can just see like all of these things that were plugged into it? Like you don't, can you?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that jiu-jitsu, before didn't have very many names for very many movements. There might have been a dozen names for 100 movements. One. And two, it wasn't really modified for body types, which isn't a great thing. And so you started to see this deviation first with like limb length. So if I've got long limbs, it's very different than if I have short limbs, or I'm a very thick person versus a very thin person, or if I'm a very aggressive person versus a very passive person. So games develop based on the limb length, the thickness, and the level of aggression of the person. And you start to see them take the whole, and I'm going to extract these components, this portion of the total, and do my thing over here. And this other guy who's opposite of that is going over here with this part, and another person is going over here. And so you start to see it kind of fragment, so it's not as complete as it maybe once was. And then they start doing all these weird things to counterbalance the missing portion. But the big difference, like I don't remember, coming up and seeing a lot of guys being inverted or a lot of guys doing berimbolo type movements. The big change I think was when like spider guard became like a viable technique or approach to.
And you guys can
fighting.
Google all these terms if you don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, so just there are complexities of jiu-jitsu that take it from very simple to making it more complex, and basically it's game or style based, right? Because with this style, you have these vulnerabilities or exposures for the opponent. And that's really what they're learning to do, is based on whatever physical feature or mental feature they have, they're getting into a position that will give them theoretically more advantages, more potential positive outcomes.
In shooting, over the course of classes, I'll point out to students, the way I describe it is when somebody misunderstands something or doesn't understand the totality of it, like your jiu-jitsu is 1,000 times beyond what mine is, so I may watch you or listen to you and think, oh, that's what he's meaning. And then if I try to take my limited knowledge and pass it on, it's natural I'm going to plug a couple things in that are like and I think what Todd meant was this, and if you do this, and like in, for example, shooting, if this is good, then that must be better, because like we men like to just take things and like, we'll just make it more,
Yes.
Just make it bigger, make it stronger, make it harder. And like, is that part of the problem? Like guys just not fully understanding something that was simple? And
I don't know. I mean, I think part of it is just the commercial component of it. And that also exists in firearms too, because you'll see all kinds of different gear that's created that we don't need. But I think it's a lot. It has a lot to do with the commercial component and making it viable for everybody. Initially, the beauty of it was it worked for very small people because of angles and leverage, and Elio Gracie being such a small, frail human. I mean, if you look at Elio's history, he couldn't even train initially when Count Como was teaching his brother because he was so frail and they were worried about him getting hurt. And he had watched for a long period of time before he ever even started. So it was designed for smaller people and it worked well that way, but then it kind of went off in all these different weird directions. And I think that, again, had to do with personality types and what worked for different individuals. You see a lot of martial arts are more whole in the beginning, and then they kind of split up and fragment, and everybody kind of goes in different directions with it. So, I don't know about making it bigger or harder or whatever. You see that more guys separating from jiu-jitsu and going to MMA, which I come from, but you see they go off very quickly, or they go into no-gi. You see that compartmentalization occur that way in terms of bigger, harder, stronger. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But I don't know. I think that's more, from what I can tell, relative to what sells, what's interesting, what's different. And, we've had guys that have come in that get very bored by doing something simple, like repeating the same thing over and over and over again, which is how you get good at something. So they're constantly trying to change the move or make some type of adjustment that makes it more interesting for them. They look for complexities. They want complexities. And that, for me, is not the solution. But it is for some people.
Humans. Making shit harder. Protection for and from humanity. Talk about that.
It's a book I wrote, sitting on your table right here. and right next to this great product here. And the book is basically written for private citizens, for civilians, and it takes military and law enforcement systems, processes, ideas, concepts, and it puts them into a very simple kind of collective format where people can look at that and apply it to their daily lives. They don't have to have any specialized background. But it's mostly a way of thinking. We cover a lot of soft skills in the books. We don't spend too much time on hard skills, but we address it just to kind of get a quick cursory overview. But yeah, it's made for the average everyday citizen to kind of better understand. And for professionals as well, yeah, because not all things cross over. We kind of have this idea that, well, if you're in the military, you know the same thing as law enforcement, you're law enforcement, you know military, and that's not true. It's not true at all. And so some of those are areas that don't cross over. So if you were in the military but never spent time in law enforcement, you pick up some stuff from there and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So yes, there's definitely some material that's good for the professional.
Check out this, one of the accolades on the book. Todd Fox is an exception. He can teach it and he can do it. I've seen him in action and I've seen him teaching. He carries a unique ability to have mastered both aspects. Read the book. Somebody you may have heard of, Mr. Henzo Gracie. That's pretty cool. And you've got one on here. Mr. Fox has operated at the highest levels of international business. He has proven that his organization is capable of functioning freely while maintaining discretion in matters of great importance. That's from a United States Supreme Court Justice. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. You've got an FBI SWAT team leader on here. You've got a CEO of an international company that was a Navy SEAL. That's pretty cool. Now, on your website, a lot of your clients are private, but on your website, you list some of the bands. And if they're listed, I'm assuming I can say their name.
Absolutely.
So like the Eagles is one of the bands that you did do the security for. What were some other ones that you've got on there?
Yeah, just to be clear, so guys don't think I'm out here spewing something that's not public knowledge. Our artist clients will list our names. They have tour books and they sell them at different stands, points of purchase at a venue. So our entertainers, meaning film and music, they disclose that we do protection for them. And so once
they just want people to know, like we've got.
No, it's kind of part of their history. They'll list different entities, like these are the guys that are doing the choreography for the dancing. These are the guys and even in some cases we'll say, hey, will you omit our names, our company? And they're like, no, we want you added into this. And so we've become accustomed to that. So with our executives, with our dignitaries, with governmental, we don't list any of that. We keep that private as it should be. But with entertainers, once they list us, we list them. So on the website, as you noted, tourprotection.com, we have, probably 30 of our artists listed. So, Tool, System of a Down, the Eagles, as you noted. Jay-Z, Janet Jackson, Mary J. Blige, on and on. Right now we got some guys out doing Travis Scott and 9 Inch Nails just canceled. But a lot of artists.
COVID or what?
COVID, yeah.
I wanted him to tell you that, he doesn't need to pat his back, but in the business that he's in, there's tons of dudes that do what he does, but at a different level. And I know him enough that he'd never say that, but I know a handful of guys that do what Todd does in various industries, and he's a super respected dude, which part of the reason that we keep bringing him back to you and why we're filming. So if you're watching this in the future, today is the 23rd of August, 2021. And since our YouTube videos are up forever, you may be watching this 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now. This is the material that you should be digging into. Yes, you can go study another carbine course or something of that nature. How many of your friends have used their carbine at the mall to put down an active shooter? Truth is, even if you're a cop, you're probably not walking around with a carbine slung up unless you're on some special detail, or if it's some active shooter scenario, which is a reason to train for it, but it's still 1 in a gazillion probability. But like you talk about, the high risk, low frequency, you know, that whole discussion. So there's a reason for it, but you've kind of parsed that information from your life experiences and are giving it to people in a digestible format, not only in the book, but in your training.
Yes, sir. So following that, there was a demand for doing training because guys like, well, I read this, I understand this, now I understand the theory, but like, what about doing it? And it was a good point. And we had never trained civilians. And we had been training, well, probably mid to late 90s with military and law enforcement. And we didn't do anything for civilians. COVID hit and things kind of fell apart and guys started asking about it. And so we said, you know what, we are going to train selected civilians. So over 21, U.S. citizens, no felonious history, good to go, sign up. And as you know, we started with Intro to Protection. Mm-hmm. So basically the concepts in the book, first half of the day, PowerPoint, discussion, drills, and the second half of the day, hands-on practical application of techniques. And then everything done with stress involved so that we get the reality of it. Here's the theory, here's the practice with a mild amount of stress.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we talked about earlier, and we'll talk about the rest of the day that we're filming here, is what do people pay attention to, or how do you decide what to pay attention to? And that's a good takeaway from the curriculum, is helping the student figure out, here's where I need to direct my energy, which also would say, here's where I need to direct my training. If I live in the desert, I don't need to be worried about water rescue, or vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of those that kind of keeps surfacing came from the Marine Corps Combat Hunter program is the baseline anomaly. So being able to establish the baseline, how do you do that? First, how do you do it before you get somewhere? Second, how do you do it when you do get there? And then, you know, what is an anomaly? How does the anomaly work?
Baseline meaning like the status quo for this environment.
Baseline of normalcy. So what is normal in a given environment? And so this can be related to the people, how the people move through an environment, what they're looking at, what they're paying attention to, how they're dressed, what lighting conditions are like, literally all these components in a given environment that can be analyzed, we would take in. So if it's something that is discernible, I say, okay, this thing belongs in this spot, and at noon every day, the milkman comes and collects those empty crates and walks away. So anything like that. So what is normal in that environment? How do those things function together? And what is an anomaly? What doesn't fit into the environment? What is a deviation from the norm? So the anomaly is what can hurt you. We break down the anomaly into two formats. Most anomalies are what we call benign. They're not going to hurt you. They're just some weird thing that happened in the moment. A person wandered into some place and left. It was a homeless guy. Or somebody came out of nowhere running, but they didn't have any weapons in their hand or on their person, and they were screaming because maybe they had some type of mental illness. Mm-hmm. Those are benign anomalies. Now, they could become critical, but in the initial assessment, it would be benign. Whereas a critical anomaly is something that can hurt you, which is what we're worried about. So we're scanning and assessing what's normal to find the anomalies, to find the critical anomaly. When we find what we think is a critical anomaly, and typically in the Marine Corps they do clusters of 3. We don't use that, but clusters of 3 anomalies occurring in a given environment. We do what we call the 3 C's. So we have a decision to make. And the Marine Corps also uses this, which is called the BAD algorithm. And the BAD algorithm is baseline plus anomaly equals decision. So we know it's normal, something's occurring that's not normal, we think it's critical, we need to make a decision. We need to do something. We have the 3 C's. 3 C's are continue as planned, which is typically a bad option when you have an anomaly. For me to continue as planned, I would need to have the skills, the tools, and I would also need to say that me having this engagement or addressing this problem or continuing on is worth it, meaning that the end objective is so important that I'm willing to take this risk and have to have this engagement to continue moving forward. That's not normally what we want. The second one is to change your route, change your plan, change your movement, change your behavior, change your direction, whatever it's going to be that takes you out of that environment with the anomaly, right? Which typically ends up being our best option, right, for us in my particular case. So we make some type of deviation to just remove us out of that area, at least temporarily, before we'd go back through or in or around that anomaly. And then the last one is cancel. Like, pull chalks, we're out, we're leaving, we're never coming back, we're done. We cancel the operation. And that doesn't happen too much, sometimes because, again, ego, and we want to achieve this objective and we make stupid decisions. But that one happens, I would say, with the least amount of frequency, with changing the route, changing the behavior, changing the action being the most common.
Recently saw a incident of road rage where the victim did the right thing. I shared the video. Pulls off the highway, is going to, get back on the highway at another entrance. Guy gets off, the aggressor finds this person, blocks them in traffic, gets out and throws a frickin' tomahawk through their windshield, right? People will look at that. He should have done this, should have done that. Like, he did like a really good thing. Got away, broke contact, and then literally stopped paying attention because they thought they had left this person, and all of a sudden dude passes them, gets in front of them, puts the brakes on, so they there. But like, I think sometimes people listen and they start thinking like Rambo missions instead of like looking at the immediate. Like, I'm gonna walk in the movie theater and there's 40 kids running out screaming, like, maybe I shouldn't go in the movie theater right now. Maybe I should step over here and look and, touch, smell, feel, all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's another good thing. In one, most of the time it's simple. It's not super complex. It's just being in tune and using your senses as you're noting. Unfortunately, when we stare at this, we can't really see what's going on around us. And then our hearing is also impaired by just physically staring at this. Like, if I'm using my eyes and my attention's on this, I start not to be able to hear as well. So that's a big deal for us. That's an important component. But as you note with that particular tomahawk incident, you can change behavior.
Making notes, keep going.
And as you change behavior, the situation changes. So you can decide you're going to continue on as planned, and then they do something that says, wait a second, now I'm going to change my behavior. And I change. So I went from continue to change. And then they present a problem maybe that you say, you know what, we're pulling chalks and we're out. So we've now cycled through for that same situation as it evolves. Continue is my first choice. That didn't work out. I changed behavior or plan or map or whatever I'm going to do. And then I've canceled. And I've done all three with the same particular incident that I'm doing. So that is dynamic. And it's never final.
And that's the part where training is so important. You get more exposed to these various scenarios and thought. I think last time we talked, I brought it up. Jared Reston said, I've killed 1 million men, 1 million ways, 1 million times. And people freak out, but like, it's just him thinking, if this happens, I'll do this. If that happens, I'll do this. And like you brought up earlier, what is the totality? Am I alone? Am I with my kids? Do I have a knee brace on and just had knee surgery? Am I 80 years old? Am I 20 years old?
Yeah, and so that's critical, because this is advanced thinking and planning. And every time you do a rep in your head, you're doing a rep. It's a rep. And people planning or thinking through stuff, the if-then thinking, again, kind of a Cooper thing. If X happens, I'm going to do Y, and this is the trigger for that. If they cross this threshold, this is when I'm going to act. So having those states of mind and having worked through that already creates that synapse, right, between the two neurons. So now you've already got that established in your brain, and that will help you decide quicker. And as you know, the quicker you decide, typically the outcome will favor you. So that's all part of it, being able to think through it. I know that if I go in this place, this can happen. If this happens, I'm going to do X or Y. If I go to this place and this other thing happens, which doesn't happen quite as frequently, I'm going to do whatever. But all that takes advanced planning. And every time you're training and you're going through this stuff, your reactions are going to be quicker. You're going to be able to respond quicker. And again, that typically favors us. If we're the ones making the decision and we're taking it to them, right?
Just that having done some thinking about it, you're saying puts you ahead of
Not just the thinking, the training as well.
Sure.
If I know in this day and age these things can occur, and I'm training for that, whether it's a gunfight or a fist fight, or trying to retain my weapon, because I know if I carry a weapon, I should be training to keep the weapon on me. I want to retain that weapon. I don't want to introduce this thing into a complex situation. Now I'm going to introduce this weapon into it. That's very dangerous, as you know. So I should be training also that. So yes, the forethought coupled with the physical training. And then the mental preparation, as I'm driving, I'm scanning and assessing, I'm looking at my environment. I'm not panicked, I'm not freaking out. I'm just looking like, okay, it looks like, okay, there's traffic ahead. Maybe there's an accident. Maybe I want to get off on this road. I want to cross over here. And I've looked at the mapping system to figure out if that's even a possibility for me.
Laziness. That stops people from doing all of this. It's just too easy to just do what you do.
I can't speak for you, but I'm no exception. My brain wants to take the simple way, but I'm responsible for my choices, and I want a very specific outcome, and therefore I'm going to have to override my brain when it says it's too much work. The chance of that happening is this, and therefore I shouldn't spend so much time focused on that.
Choices.
That's
pretty much all that life is.
100%.
And then you're stardust again. All this stuff is in your book. More importantly, this stuff is in your training programs. People, gym owners, PDs, others with the means and funds can contact you, can set up training programs, can visit you for training programs. They can hire you for consults. They can hire your company for what you do with the protection stuff. How do they find you?
info@tourprotection.com.
That's the email.
Is my email. The website obviously is tourprotection.com. Also, we now have a 1-year-old Instagram account. I've never been on social media until COVID happened, and I'm on there, mostly kind of bits and pieces from different podcasts. But we are at Tour Training. If guys want to look at my background or history, they can look at toddafox.com, the website. But that's mostly just pictures of places and things that have happened if you're interested in jiu-jitsu or the military or whatever else. But the best way is via email, info@tourprotection.com.
Todd hates tooting his own horn. Hates it. What's your background?
Marine Corps, law enforcement on SRT, protective security, 3 black belts with my primary, as you know, being in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I fought in the 90s. I was 10-2 as a pro MMA guy. The standard kind of route: military, law enforcement, protective security, fighting.
I just dim mocked you.
I in 30 years from
30
now,
years from now, that knee's going to go out. You're gonna need
the knee's gone already, so you've done your job.
I hope that you guys enjoyed this discussion. I'm sure we'll have Todd back. If you do some research, you'll see him on many podcasts. You've been a very prolific podcaster this past year.
I have.
Hey, what have you done? 10, 20 of them? 30 of them?
20.
Yeah, so that's a lot.
20 in a year.
That's so there's going to be tons of various conversation points if you want to learn more about them. I would highly recommend investing some energy in buying his book. Where is that? On your website, on Amazon?
It is. It's on both. So all the places that you could buy books online, it's in e-format. I would advocate paper because I think this is a book that you'd want to actually take physical notes on and make some adjustments on. But tourprotection.com has the book at the lowest price point. So if you want it cheap, go to tourprotection.com, or you go to Amazon or Apple or Barnes & Noble or any of the online purveyors of books.
I would buy it. He's got Emerson in here, one of my favorite authors. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. It's a good spot to end. Don't be dickheads. If you liked this podcast, share it. Hook up with him. Hook up with somebody, because you only live for a short while. Enjoy. Tell Drew how much you appreciate him. And look for the series of videos that we are filming now. This will be out long before all of those videos are out, but depending on when you tune in here. They'll be there on the CarryTrainer YouTube channel and other places. Bye now. Let's get another signature from you, big boy.
On
there. Actually, you can sign either. Visit our website, CarryTrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., CarryTrainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@CarryTrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@CarryTrainer.com or CarryTrainer.com.
I said I got me some gunfighter gun law. Gunfighter gun law, baby. Gunfighter gun oh, no more gunfighter blues. Made in the USA. Amazing lubricity. 100% synthetic, baby. So it's gonna last you longer. So go on CarryTrainer.com and order yourself some gunfighter gun or gunfighter lube to get rid of your gunfighter blues. I said go on and order yourself some gunfighter lube. Yeah!